Alright, so we made it to the last day of the first month of 2022. That means 11 more months to go. But since I didn't do this ranking during the middle of the month or the beginning of the month, I'm going to do it at the end of the month. I'm going to rank all 37 2021 films I saw in the year 2021, ranked from the worst to the best. Please note that everything that I will say in this video is just my very own opinion. My name is Nation, and if you are new to the channel, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out that Twitter. It's going to pop up on your screen right now. Also, please note that everything that I will say in this video is just my very own opinion. My list is certainly not the right list. It is just my list, and you are free to comment down below your ranking of all of the 2021 movies that you saw, ranked from the worst to the best, just like me, or you could just do your favorite. I've seen more than just 37 movies this year, but of the movies that released in 2021, those were the movies that I saw inside of this year. So yeah, I saw more movies this year than I did last year. You know, some commenters wanted to point out last year. But with that being said, let's just get right into our ranking. Kicking off our list at the bottom at number 37 is Hes All That, the worst film of the year. I cannot stress this enough. I have never seen She's All That, but I bet that movie will be better than this garbage. It's disgusting, horribly acted, and just plain cringy. And that's the worst part. It's cringy. Addison Rae is like one of the hottest females on the planet. Like, from looks, she's a W. From body, she's a W. But a freaking TikToker known for dancing and shaking her butt on the internet got a starring role in a Netflix film starring alongside Cobra Kai and Matthew Lillard. My favorite film is Scooby-Doo 2002, and Matthew Lillard is Shaggy to me. So at least that's a highlight. Instead of casting someone that could act, this girl right here, who just had to be the evil friend, they cast a dancer that has no business stepping foot on a movie set. This movie also tries to have a message about looks and being yourself, but it just comes off as Addison Rae trying to explain to the audience that she's not just a dancer. See, she has flaws too, by showing her with a snot bubble and no makeup on. God, this movie's terrible. It's just as bad as when they threw crap at each other. No, I'm not kidding. There's a literal scene in the movie where Cobra Kai and TikTok thought throw horse poop at each other. I'm done. On to the next. Coming in at number 36 for me is Injustice, one of the worst animated DC films I have ever seen. I was looking forward to it, but I didn't realize how much story they just rushed through. I'm pretty sure that Injustice, as a story from the game that is, involves a lot more DC characters and twists than what we saw. Like I said in my tweet, the designs were distracting, the ending was abrupt, and the deaths were just plain lame. Top 35 for me is The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It, a horror movie that didn't creep me out at all. The supernatural aspects may creep out some of my family members, but since I've never seen any of the Conjuring films, I didn't feel anything for these characters because I liked them, but because I know the actors. For a title called The Devil Made Me Do It, there's nothing scary about this quote-unquote horror movie. At 34 for me, it's Dune, a snooze fest of a film. Obviously, since they announced a part 2, I'm going to go check it out because I want to see how the story wraps up. But for me, Dune was a snooze fest. It was boring, too heavy on the exposition, and never really picked up the pace until the hour and 40-minute mark. It looks gorgeous, and the scale is huge, and the story is huge, that obviously they couldn't fit all of it. Not even the whole entire first book was able to fit inside of this film. But for someone like me who watched this at home, I could not tell you what this film is about. And it's a shame too, because I love sci-fi adventures. But Dune just had a little bit too much story for me to handle. 33 was Reminiscence. I didn't care much about this movie. When it dropped, it didn't make a splash, it bombed at the box office, and was deemed as terrible by critics. I checked it out because Hugh Jackman was in it, and I thought, well, it could be cool. And I gotta say, it wasn't that bad. But it wasn't the greatest thing ever. That's why it's lower on this list. It's painfully average, actually below average, and a film that wouldn't have made that big splash anyway, even if there wasn't a pandemic. Amazing ideas and concepts, though, with the idea that you can revisit your memories in a vat, and the noir/mystery story of it all seems very interesting to me. But besides that, this is a film I have no interest to see again. 32 is Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I grew up with the books and the movies, and this one is legit just the first movie, just rushed and animated. I do really like the voice acting and the animation, though, but all in all, it only solidified that Greg is just an unlikable character. He manipulates, he lies, he hurts his friends, and in the end, none of it really matters. Number 31 is Space Jam 2: A New Legacy. My 10th highest anticipated film of 2021 was not the best. It's clear that LeBron James is not a thespian. His acting is just terrible. I mean, look at this.
Siri, you let us out of here, please.
Siri?
The film never really takes itself seriously, though. The animation scenes are the better part of the film, and Don Cheadle's infectious energy when acting is awesome here. All in all, it's a film that refers to the Looney Tunes as wash-ups, while desperately trying to bring them back for a new generation. Top 30 is Tom and Jerry. Not a complete dumpster fire, though, but is it cringe? Yes. Do it feature less Tom and Jerry than we were all hoping? Yes. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I really enjoyed this film. And when I rewatched it, I just thought of it as a harmless enough fun with some old-fashioned Tom and Jerry violence and hijinks when they happen. It's a movie you can put on for the kids and easily find something entertaining about it. 29 is Coming to America, the sequel. Not as great as the first film, but I'd say I had more fun with this one than the first. A little background knowledge. The first movie came out in 1988, way before I was born, so I didn't have the nostalgia as my family members did. The day this film came out, they all watched it and thought it was pretty terrible, because they all remember seeing the first film in theaters and they loved it. But when I saw this film, it wasn't as bad as they said it was. Definitely a departure. The humor wasn't as funny, the story wasn't as compelling, and the direction they went with the movie tries to pay tribute to the first film, but in a weird way. I had more fun with this film because I love seeing older actors come back to play characters that they played 30 years ago. There's something special about that to me, especially when I saw the first film prior to watching this one. All the jokes, all the cameos came right back. I'm sure if it came out in theaters, the auditoriums would be packed. Again, not better than the first film, but for me, more enjoyable. Number 28 is Without Remorse. Tom Clancy's Michael B. Jordan flick was a film on my radar, and when I saw it, I thought of it to be a pretty cool movie. It's familiar, it's predictable, but what I signed up for was an action thriller featuring Michael B. Jordan as the main character. I mean, the first scene of the trailer is him in a prison cell waiting for guards to come in so he can kick their butts. The action is tense, the acting is great, all of it is just an average action movie that's right up my alley. At number 27 is The Princess Switch 3, Romancing the Star. This is the last film that I saw of 2021. The comfort movies of the Christmas season now have a trilogy, and the third one is probably the worst. I didn't have a bad time with this film, but I also didn't have that much fun with it like the first one. It's very much a heist Christmas story, so it's a great movie to watch with the family or your girlfriend. But besides Vanessa Hudgens' acting range, because she's playing 3 different characters, 3 different love interests, and, you know, obviously her good looks, her beauty, she is beautiful. Compared to the first film, it seems like they're running on fumes at this point. Number 26 has gotta go to Luca. I love when Pixar comes out with new movies, and Luca was one I was very interested in since 2020. When it got slapped on Disney Plus, I was a little bit shaken, but after watching the film, it's kind of like Raya for me. I was very interested in it, but the middle part bored me. The animation is dazzling, and the friendship between these two boys is heartwarming and totally not gay. Like, why does everybody think like these boys were gay? Like, they're obviously not gay. But on the Pixar list, for me, I wouldn't rank this one up high, though. Kicking out top 25 is Mortal Kombat. I really liked it. In my opinion, it didn't suck. All the negativity, I agree with it. The not seeing the tournament, the bland characters, the editing, the whole ordeal. But man, oh man, the fatalities, the bloody action, Scorpion and Sub-Zero, the costumes, it felt like this was just the first part of a bigger story just like Dune, but I enjoyed this one a lot better. And I'm fine with all of that, especially because it was just announced that we're getting a sequel. I'm more excited for that than I am for Dune Part 2. At number 24 is Cruella, a flamboyant film about a fashion designer with two personalities that wants to challenge and rebel against the system in 1970s punk rock London. Except this one is a puppy skinner. I fairly liked it. Actually, it was something different from the live-action Disney films we've seen before, and it was a little bit more adult. Emma Stone's performance is great, but the standout to me was Emma Thompson. She was great and just terrifying. The teases of the Dalmatians were all great. I love it when they tease, the little teases of the Dalmatians in the movie were just great to me. The biggest problem here, though, is that it's hard for you to find out who this film is for. Personally, I wouldn't let my baby cousins watch this film because there is going to be a little bit more intense for them. So it all depends on what a parent or older guardian wants their children to watch. Coming in at number 23 for me has got to go to Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. The second part to the two-part series wasn't as great as the first for me. The story gets a little bit more jumbled, more characters and villains get involved, so that means some of them are pushed to the back burner. Scarecrow and Mad Hatter and Poison Ivy felt as though they were just rushed in there, and the murder mystery is a little bit toned down for Two-Face's rise and the Falcone family. I think it's acceptable. It's a fine movie, just not of the same quality as the first part. At number 22 is Jungle Cruise. The Rock and Emily Blunt's chemistry is so great in this film. The swashbuckling adventure tone I get from this movie makes it worth the watch. It's such an epic story with mythology and infectious characters that you really care about in the end. Jungle Cruise feels different while also being familiar enough that's easy to consume. At number 21 for me is Eternals. Not a bad MCU film for me. It's not even the worst MCU film for me like a lot of people say it is. But it sure is an ambitious one. I don't agree with all the negativity. It does something new and experimental that we've never seen from Marvel. But I also get that it's not something that everyone is going to love. But for me, I loved it. And I enjoyed it. I want to see these characters again. Eternals is probably the best looking Marvel film thanks to its practical locations, and it also moves the MCU forward in a way that we haven't even seen from the other Phase 4 movies, especially even in Spiderman No Way Home. Though with its themes and exposition, it's not going to be for everyone. And I can understand that. Kicking off my top 20 list for me has got to go Fast and Furious 9. I'm a huge fan of the Fast franchise. I grew up watching them with my mom. We see every Fast movie in theaters, and this is one going in. I heard things like it's the worst of the franchise. And I don't agree. Now, is it, a little bit lower than the other films that we've seen before? Yes, but it's not the worst of the franchise. It's bonkers and wild. It has high octane, ridiculous action to the max, and I loved all of it. John Cena seems right at home with the ridiculousness, and even the idea of them having self-referential jokes where they make fun of their own ridiculousness is great to me. My only negative is that the film didn't feel as huge as the others, and part of that has to do with the absence of The Rock, and I do think that with his part to play in these films, they feel huger. Fast 5 through 8 felt like events that brought the entire crew with them for the ride and the mission. I'm excited for F10, I just don't want it to be as small as this film was, even though they went to space. At number 19 for me has got to go to SpongeBob Sponge on the Run, the worst SpongeBob movie, but still very fun. As a SpongeBob fan and someone who grew up watching the series, seeing another big budget SpongeBob movie was something I was looking forward to. Needless to say, it's a story that we've seen before in the series. Gary goes missing, SpongeBob is distraught, he goes on an adventure to get him back. With this film, it's a larger adventure for no reason because it's a story we've seen before. The new animation actually grows on you well, and the colorful locations look amazing, but it's clear that it's just a prologue to get people invested with the animation before they release Camp Coral, which I don't even think did that very well. I don't know how Camp Coral is doing over there on Paramount Plus. Number 18 for me has got to go to Raya and the Last Dragon, one of the highest anticipated films for 2021 for me, after my Big 10, that is. The gorgeous animation, cinematic action, and storytelling helped this film out a lot. I wouldn't say I loved it. Somewhere along the middle, I got bored, and all of it is very reminiscent of Avatar: The Last Airbender. but Raya is by no means a terrible film. It has a great message, great voice acting, and like I said, beautiful cinematic action and storytelling. It's just a film that I'd say I enjoyed enough to really like it and say it was above average. At number 17 for me, it's got to go to Boss Baby 2, The Family Business. I like this one a lot better than the first. Two brothers that grew apart from each other only to come back together again is great to me. I love that story, and it reminds me of me and my brother. I thought it was very fun from the beginning to end, with fantastic voice acting from Jeff Goldblum and Amy Sedaris as Tina. She was amazing. Tina was by far my favorite character. Tim's imagination also never fails to give us creative locations, but also use that as a vehicle to tell a compelling story between brother and father and daughter. 16 is Black Widow, the first MCU film in 2 years to be released. Was not as bad as people make it out to be. From the action to the character moments, I thought it really worked. And when they played into the spy thriller and the human trafficking tone, I found it very entertaining. Black Widow is an average MCU film that works. It's nothing spectacular, but it's also not garbage. Kicking off the top 15 list for me has got to go to Ghostbusters Afterlife, Sony's attempt at The Force Awakens. I think it worked pretty well. Ghostbusters is a franchise I didn't grow up on, and I didn't really see any Ghostbusters films until 2016 when the new one came out. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't really enjoy this movie. Sometimes it got bland and boring, that's only because of the location. But when it plays into the nostalgia by bringing back the older Ghostbusters and just having some good old-fashioned Ghostbusters fun with these kids, I was entertained. Ghostbusters Afterlife not only reboots the franchise but brings it to another audience and continues the story in an emotional way. I can't call it anything less than charming. At number 14 for me is American Skin, a powerful film. This movie actually premiered in 2019 at a film festival in Venice, but technically it premiered in the US on BET Plus in January of 2021. Like I said, a powerful film tackling themes of police brutality and racism that as a black man I would recommend watching. It makes you think. While it's not a hard watch, the tension is on because it is a story about a father wanting justice for his 14-year-old son getting shot. So he takes over the police station and put the cop that killed his son on trial using both inmates and hostages. Far from what I wanted to see this year, but definitely a conversation I needed to hear. At number 13 for me is Red Notice, a cliche and unoriginal film that brings together Black Adam, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern.
What the shit?
I'm sorry, Deadpool. For an action-packed buddy movie, Red Notice is just a good time. The Rock and Ryan Reynolds have great chemistry. The action is top notch, and that awesome twist in the film makes up for a lot of the familiarity that automatically comes with casting these three actors in a film like this. 12 is Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I had a blast with this film. When I saw it in the theater, I laughed, I enjoyed myself, and the post-credit scene was just icing on the cake. Even though he's no longer in the MCU, which I already predicted that he would not be in the MCU for much longer, Venom and Eddie's relationship is even more dynamic inside of this film. It also works as a great small graphic novel story because of how short the runtime is. The story doesn't warrant an entire 2 hour and 30 minute runtime. I think it works perfectly fine as an hour and 30 minutes. I don't really get the hate for this movie. I really loved it. 11 is Godzilla vs. Kong. My highest anticipated film for 2021 did not disappoint. The same negatives with King of the Monsters is the same here. The human characters suck, and everything involving them is boring. Now, I wouldn't say that took me out of the movie. What the trailers promised is what I got. A showdown between God freaking Zilla and Kong. And that's all I needed. I'm a simple man, and when I see a giant monkey sucking a giant lizard in the jaw, I get hype. Godzilla vs. Kong humanizes Kong in a way that you want him to win. Obviously, he doesn't, but the end result of this film is pretty satisfying with both Godzilla and Kong being the kings of their respective worlds. Kicking off the top 10 list for me has got to go to Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. Another solid addition to the MCU. I grew up with Ninjago, Ninja Turtles, and Power Rangers, so when I watched the first ninja of the MCU coming to the universe, I was hype. The film does something different. The action sequences are all practical, well, except for the third act. The acting and humor are on point, and the emotional moments hit. Simu Liu seems so invested with this character and the representation and responsibility that comes with playing Shang-Chi. Although I'm all praise for this film, it's really great, they never truly could leave their Marvel formula when doing something so profound and different. Number 9 for me is King Richard. Will Smith does it once more, playing the father of tennis superstars Venus and Serena Williams. I wasn't that excited for this film, but once it came out close to the release date, I checked it out and I adored it. Just like Fatherhood, it's rare you see a black father caring so much for his kids that he wrote a plan for their future and stayed true to that plan. It's well acted, well directed, and well told. And now I want to plan for my kids' future when I'm years and years away from ever having them. Number 8 for me is Fatherhood. Kevin Hart is my favorite comedian. He's so hilarious. But this was a different type of role for him. It's more dramatic and heartfelt, with still a little bit of comedy shining through. The idea of portraying a single father actually trying, and the fear of parenthood as well as fatherhood looming over him, I just think this is something we don't normally see, especially in a black father, that is. I love Kevin Hart in comedy, but don't let his stand-up fool you. He can act. Number 7 is Free Guy, one of the biggest surprises of the year. Free Guy won me over with this heartfelt storytelling and creative idea. The soundtrack is fun, Ryan Reynolds is funnier than ever, and the references, Star Wars and Marvels and, even Fortnite and Portal, all of it was so much fun. It's so original, it's so funny. Free Guy is just fantastic. At number 6 for me has got to go to Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. Famously among the YouTube space, this is one of the best stories for Batman, and I really love this adaptation. I've never read the graphic novel The Long Halloween. It's dark, it's mature, and takes the first part of the graphic novel and adapts it well enough for someone, like I said, who's never read the graphic novels, want to go pick them up and read them. I have not read them as of recently. But the murder mystery of it all, having a Zodiac killer that only strikes on the holidays, is clever and interesting. And again, the mystery of who is doing it is such a fun ride to go on. Harvey Dent and Batman are well voice acted, and the late Naya Rivera does a great job as Catwoman, and I especially love her role inside of this film. Kicking off the top 5 list for me has got to go to Encanto, a festive and fun animated film that is definitely one of the best of the Disney canon. Encanto finds a way to make the house a character in and of itself and make the environment fun and interesting enough to the point where we never want to leave the house and that we never leave the house for an adventure. The animation is amazing, the family aspects are all great, some of which I can relate to, and the songs are so good. Encanto, in my opinion, is one of the best Disney animated films that I've ever seen since Zootopia. It's magical, it's enchanting, it's all the way Disney. At number 4 for me is The Suicide Squad. James Gunn is unleashed in this wacky, weird requel, I like to call it. It's a reboot/sequel. It's clear to me that James Gunn should direct every comic book film because he's so great with team-ups. Obviously, I'm being a little bit facetious here. The idea of the Suicide Squad is right up his alley, though. The chemistry, the characters, the moments, all of it worked to give us an experience unlike anything the superhero genre has ever done before, while also being very heartfelt and super ultra violent and super ultra rated R. Kicking off the top 3 list for me has got to go to Zack Snyder's Justice League. Easily one of the most epic big-scale comic book films ever. Zack Snyder delivered his promise of a huge superhero film for adults. While the runtime is overbearing with 4 hours, and that's a huge negative of mine, the content, the storytelling, the characters, the arcs, the action, all of it works together to give the fans who brought this film to light closure and want more from this universe. I want more from this universe. Now, am I sad the Snyderverse won't continue? Yes, definitely, because I wanted to see a Justice League 2 and 3 right after I saw this film. But I sure am glad we got the film that gave fans, Zack Snyder, as well as the League, justice. My runner-up at number 2 for me has got to go to Spider-Man No Way Home, the cinematic event of a lifetime for Spider-Man fans. This movie somehow, despite my expectations, worked so well on giving us the Spider-Man I've always wanted in the MCU. Tom Holland has finally come into his own as Spider-Man, and it's clear to me that this entire trilogy has just been an origin story for him. After Aunt May's death and Tobey and Andrew showing up to teach him what it means to be Spider-Man and what comes with being Spider-Man and how to do things differently so he won't turn out like them, I thought it all collided into my favorite theatrical experience, beating out Avengers Infinity War. The villains were all great, the moments were spectacular, the action sequences obviously were great, though the plot in the beginning does cheat a little bit to get to the good stuff. But coming in at my number 1 for me has got to go to In the Heights, the biggest surprise of the year in my opinion. I had no anticipation for this movie. I did not know about this movie. I didn't care about this movie. And my first opinions on it were, I saw like a YouTube ad. My first opinions on it were, oh look, another we have to save our community movie because, you know, the bad people are doing bad things. So we have to stop everything that's going around. There's gang violence and we got to save our community. But then I saw the first 8 minutes of it. And I didn't know it was a musical. So when I saw the first 8 minutes of it the night before the film premiered, it got me curious. Then I watched it because of boredom. Like, I was bored the next day, and I was like, okay, well, let's just check out In the Heights. And within the first 10 minutes, I was engrossed in the film. The musical numbers are all spectacular. I know every song in the soundtrack now. The choreography to every dance number. I even bought it on Blu-ray, even though it's coming out on HBO Max a week later. I loved In the Heights. It's fantastic. It's beautiful, and when emotional moments hit, they hit. It's not overly long. It's the right amount of runtime. It doesn't even have an antagonist. It's just a good film where you see good people doing good things. I rejected musicals for years, besides, Disney flicks with songs in them. But this movie introduced me to a whole new genre of films. The characters I loved, the cast I love, everything about this movie I loved. So that means out of all the movies I saw in 2021, In the Heights, out of all 37 of them, In the Heights beat out Zack Snyder's Justice League and Spider-Man No Way Home as my favorite film of the year. In the Heights has to come in at my number 1. Alright guys, that is it for the ranking. Please know that everything that I did say in this video was just my very own opinion. My list was certainly not the right list. It was just my list, and you're free to comment down below your ranking of all of the 2021 films that you saw in the year 2021, ranked from the worst to the best, just like me, or you could just do your favorite. Please don't forget to check out that Twitter. That's going to pop up on your screen right now. And please note that, yes, it's not a joke. In the Heights is number 1. It's just a celebration of where you come from, a celebration of cultures. All of it is amazing to me. I really did not need to clarify that. I just wanted to find an excuse to talk about In the Heights again. With that being said, I will see you all next time. Peace.